Of the many, many things we're not supposed to snack on, perhaps the most common forbidden food is silica gel. This tiny packet pops up in packaging for everything, from TVs and guitar cases to sunscreen and snack foods. So why is silica gel everywhere, and what would actually happen if you ate it? Found in the Earth's crust, silica, also called silicon dioxide, is typically mined as raw silica sand, which is then washed, dried, sifted, and chemically treated. Once manufacturers ensure each grain is uniform, the processed sand gets mixed with sodium carbonate, then heated and combined with an acid that links the silica particles into a jelly-like matrix. This matrix gives the material its porous structure, which stays stable after being washed and dried into hard, glassy beads. The final product is chemically identical to the sand you might find on a beach, the only difference is that porous structure. Inside each silica gel bead is a massive microscopic network of tunnels. This dramatically increases the surface area of each bead, with a single gram of silica offering over 700 square meters of surface area. But this space doesn't stay empty for long. The silicon dioxide molecules that make up the gel are held together by polar covalent bonds, which attract other polar substances, including water. So when silica gel is placed in a humid environment, the water in the air is drawn to the bead's surface. From these surface pores, the water vapor is then pulled inside the grain through a process called capillary condensation. Each grain can hold up to 40% of its own weight in water, allowing a standard 5-gram packet to hold roughly 2 grams of liquid. And since this liquid is held inside the bead's internal network, even fully saturated silica doesn't feel wet to the touch. This ability makes silica gel a desiccant, a type of substance used to keep things dry. But these beads can suck up more than just water. Silica attracts ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and a handful of other gases, making it useful in gas masks and other filtration systems. The pace of this process depends on the environment. In a very humid enclosed space, a packet could reach its saturation point within a day or two, but this could take up to a week in a moderately humid environment. Either way, silica gel beads functionally last forever since you can dry them out in a hot oven. These abilities and silica's prevalence in Earth's crust have made it the planet's most popular commercial desiccant since we started mass-producing it in 1919. At home, it keeps snacks crispy and extends their shelf life, ensures pills and vitamins stay dry, and captures any stinky scents from your cat's litter box. Museums use silica gel in exhibit cases to prevent metal artifacts from rusting and preserved animals from growing mold. And in outer space, a form of silica gel called aerogel is used to insulate rovers from extreme temperatures and capture high-velocity comet dust for study back home. But what about what silica gel would do to you if you successfully swallowed a packet? The answer is not much. Those "do not eat" warnings have more to do with packets being choking hazards than any silica-specific concerns. Besides, your body has so much liquid in it, even if the packet did suck up the standard 2 grams, you could replenish that much and more with a single glass of water. And since silica is chemically inert, your body won't break the gel down into something toxic. That said, downing larger quantities of silica gel would be unpleasant. Its moisture-wicking properties could dry and irritate mucous membranes along the digestive tract, resulting in diarrhea and an upset stomach. Worse still, some silica is coated with cobalt chloride to indicate moisture levels, and that compound actually is toxic. But assuming your silica snack is of the standard variety,
Somewhere in medieval Switzerland, a weary traveler is relieved to see a monastery up ahead. He's welcomed, guided to a crowded guest house, and promptly served the abbey's specialty: a tall glass of beer. For centuries, monasteries across modern-day Europe were the primary large-scale brewers of beer. But this is hardly where this drink's journey began. Beer refers to any alcoholic beverage made from fermented cereal grains, the edible seeds of a particular group of grasses. The oldest evidence of beer brewing dates back 13,000 years to what's now modern-day Israel. But experts believe the drink developed independently across the world. In each of these regions, its composition was shaped by native grains. For example, 9,000 years ago in eastern China, people drank a sweet, cloudy beer made from rice, millet, and tubers. In the Andean region of South America, 5,000-year-old pottery suggests production of chicha, a brew of fermented maize. Whatever the ingredients, ancient beer brewing required two main steps. First, the starches in the cereal grains had to be converted into fermentable sugars. Some groups achieved this by chewing them, while others soaked them in water to trigger germination, a process that naturally breaks down starches. The second step was fermentation. Unbeknownst to brewers at the time, wild yeast found its way into the mixture, carried through the air, on fruit, or via reused tools still harboring yeasts from prior brews. With time and storage, yeasts converted some of these sugars into alcohol, while releasing carbon dioxide. This ancient beer was often imperfectly filtered, so it contained much more fiber, B vitamins, and protein than modern beer. And some cultures boiled the initial sugar mixture, which killed many unwanted microorganisms, making it safer to drink than other available water sources. The oldest surviving recipe describing this process appears in a Sumerian poem dedicated to their goddess of beer, Ninkasi. The Babylonians built on this adoration. Hammurabi's code mandated daily beer rations for every citizen, and any brewer caught overcharging for a pint was condemned to death by drowning. In ancient Egypt, beer was primarily made in the home by women, and was a staple of the daily diet. It also played a central role in religious festivals, and served as an offering at temples and the tombs of pharaohs. By the 20th century BCE, beer had spilled over from Egypt into Greece, though it wasn't as popular as wine. Nevertheless, over the following centuries, a thirst for beer spread through Europe and beyond. In the early Middle Ages, European monasteries pioneered large-scale beer production, both to provide to traveling pilgrims and to sell to support monastery upkeep. Around this same time, brewers from Central and Eastern Europe made a key change to their recipe. They began adding hops. These green flowers are rich in acidic compounds, imbuing beer with a new bitter flavor and acting as a preservative. Hops became so closely associated with beer that in 1516, a Bavarian duke issued a beer purity law, known as the Reinheitsgebot, that defined beer's composition as strictly barley, hops, and water. The Industrial Revolution ushered in other essential beer innovations, including advances in refrigeration. In 1876, French chemist Louis Pasteur identified yeast's role in beer fermentation. With this, a key beer ingredient was finally made visible. Brewers began selecting for different yeasts to refine recipes and experiment with flavor. Today, there are well over 100 distinct beer varieties, with lagers and ales being the two main types. Lagers, which include pilsners and bocks, are fermented with yeasts that thrive at colder temperatures and live at the bottom of fermentation vessels. Ales, like porters, stouts, and pale ales, ferment quicker, with yeasts that live at higher temperatures and float at the top of the mixture. But some beers break this mold. Kolsches, for example, start with ale yeast, but are finished at colder temperatures like lagers. Others draw on ancient methods, like Belgian lambics, which rely on spontaneous fermentation with wild yeast. Meanwhile, there are still new challenges to navigate. The growing demand for non-alcoholic beers has pushed producers to find ways to limit or remove alcohol while still preserving flavor. And if history is any indication, beer's story will continue brewing for many years to come.